Hey everyone, Alexandra Jarrett, Jupiter Returns here with your weekly astrology forecast for the week of the 25th to the 31st of January. I hope you're all safe and well. Last week threw a few kind of power punches out there. So if you've been experiencing those in your own life, as I know a number of people I've spoken to, and in fact myself, if you experienced those last week, then well done for getting through that kind of choppy part of the water. This week really makes me excited. It makes me feel like there is just so much that we could get out of the astrology that's going to be showing up, that I think is going to be super, super relevant both in our microcosm, the inner world, as well as out there in the macrocosm and the part that we play in that. Essentially, as an introduction to this week's energy and kind of looking at the whole of the picture in its entirety, before I go on to go through each day and break things down individually. Forgive me if you can hear some drilling in the background. There's nothing I can do about it, which will be also a feature of this week. I hope it's not too disturbing, and hopefully it shouldn't go on for long. But yeah, it really is a week where we can, anyone that's invested or committed to the process of self-understanding, to deepening self-awareness and understanding the process of life itself, this is going to be an incredibly powerful time for you. And that's what astrology is all about for me. It's the perfect tool to help you on that journey of self-discovery and on that journey of understanding what it's all about, which could well be the kinds of questions we're asking ourselves or asking the heavens about this time. Now, I have mentioned a couple of times recently that I'm going to be running a session to help you make the most of my astrology forecasts and other people's astrology forecasts, how you can get the relevance for your individual life from the information that I put out here every week. So on Friday, the 5th of February, I'm going to be running a Zoom session applying astrology forecasts to your life. Look out for a link for that in the coming days on my Facebook page, on my Instagram. And if you don't subscribe to either of those services, then drop me an email via my website, jupiterreturns.co.uk, and make sure I send you a link. And if, as has happened recently, it's oversubscribed for that date on the 5th of Friday, if you've expressed an interest but haven't purchased your ticket yet to secure your spot, don't worry, because I will run another one after that if there's additional people that want to take part. So don't worry too much if it fills up quite quickly, because I anticipate that it probably will, because it's something that I've been asked a lot about. And I'm really all about teaching you guys. I'm really all about spreading the wisdom of astrology so that everyone can benefit from its wisdom and apply it to your own life. So if you've really wanted to get to grips with the basics of how this stuff works and what you need to do whilst you're watching my forecast, in terms of, what to do with your own chart, your own birth chart, your own astrology, then that is the one for you. It's aimed at beginners, foundation, and anyone really who wants a refresher, anyone who perhaps has done some work with astrology in the past, but they just want to refine it and just, get back to grips. Also, it's a perfect opportunity for you to ask questions of me specifically, and do send those into me in the meantime, so that I can make sure that when I'm putting the session together, that I'm making sure that everybody's, everyone's getting what they want out of it. So look out for that. But coming back to this week, really, I kind of summarize this week as the energy of this week is presenting us with the beginning of a powerful choice point. I've been talking a lot about Neptune in Pisces in square to the nodes of the moon, and the way that that's now coming into perfection with everything else that's happening around it this week. That really is quite a potent choice point for us in our lives. And it's basically a choice point about ourselves, how we're showing up in the world. Do we matter? That's one of the questions right now. And I feel like what's showing up, certainly politically, on social media, and a lot of exchanges, and in a lot of people's lives, is a feeling of irrelevance, a feeling of not having, not mattering much in the grand scheme of things. So feeling invalidated in some sense. And so we're going to really look at all of the parts of that, how it's showing up. But yeah, so it's a week of how we're showing up in the world. Do we matter? And if so, how? What's our relevance? And how are we recognized? How does the current system, the current structure, and our current connections to tribe, how does that provide that recognition for us, which is every single human being needs that recognition, and every single person on this planet, irrespective of the fact that there's 8 billion of us, just the fact that there's so many of us doesn't make us any less important or valid or useful. And that's really, really big part of this week's astrology, is how do we get that sense in our own selves and in our own lives and in our own worlds of where we're contributing in a meaningful, purposeful way to how we're moving forward as a tribe, the collective of humanity. So lots and lots and lots of really helpful stuff that's happening in that respect. So we're beginning the process that involves becoming clear on who we are, despite so much uncertainty in the world. Everything feels like it's up in the air. Everything feels like it's impossible to make a plan. Aspects of our lives that we use to give us a sense of identity, our careers, our, what we do out there in our normal day-to-day lives, everything's just kind of been thrown to pot. So just our sense of identity, who we are, is kind of in flux as well, along with the state of affairs as it pulls us in. So the process of becoming clear on who we are despite so much uncertainty, how our values form the structure of our life. And with this, it's going to be talking about Venus in Capricorn, Venus being what we think is worthy, what we love, what we value, what we appreciate, and how we connect. In Capricorn, there, that structure, that fabric of society that we see being pulled apart, being tested, being stretched, being all of its weaknesses and its inherent faults being shown up so vividly at this point in time. Venus there asking us, okay, well, if this is breaking apart, what could it be that we find more worthy going forward? So how our values sit in the structure of life, how our relationship to the basic resources and natural world are crucial to our way forward. This is talking about Mars and Uranus there in Taurus. Taurus really was representing those basic survival needs that we have: our food, water, energy, a roof over our heads, absolute basic survival resources, and also our connection to the ultimate survival resource of all of us, which of course is our planet and Mother Earth, Gaia. What's our relationship to that going forwards, and what's our part in that? Who we consider our tribe to be is a really important question at this time, and you may be going through something of a refining process around that, or exploring different connections or different ways of connecting to what you feel is your tribe. Of course, this is with all the highlight up there in Aquarius, that's going to be going through a refining process as well. And of course, how we can be the change as a truly significant part of humanity. As always, all this year, my little mascot up here, B, is just to remind us, B in Aquarius there, is to be the change that we seek in the world. That is the core message. If you take nothing else from anything you listen to that I say this year, that's what it's all about. You know, change starts with you. So without further ado, let's start moving into this week with Monday the 25th. We find ourselves, we've got the moon here in Mercury ruled Gemini. She's going to be completing that journey and moving into her home sign of Cancer. This is around about 7 p.m. UK time. And this means that the moon is very strongly placed. She's gaining in influence anyway, because she's nearing the full moon, which comes later on in the week. So she's waxing, but she's waxing gibbous now. She's really, really getting quite plump and juicy up there in the sky at this point in time. So to be going through that process also in her home sign of Cancer, she's really very, very, very influential at this time. And this is going to tap us into our own intuition, all right, our own, you know, when they say females seem to have more of this, kind of the feeling in your waters, Cancer being your waters, and the moon being what creates the tides, the pull, the gravitational pull that makes those waters move in and out. And so it's really, really powerfully speaks to the intuitive process, just that knowing that we have, you know, in our waters, and waters representing our feelings and our emotions. So powerful moon, we have the sun over there in Aquarius right now at 5 degrees. Now, sun isn't super happy in Aquarius. Sun rules the opposite sign, Leo, okay? The sun rules Leo, which means that when the sun's in the sign opposite, it's in detriment. So the sun isn't really able to give its best influence, or its most, the kinds of qualities that we would prefer, let's say. And this is, of course, because Aquarius is the sign of the tribe. It's the sign of everyone being equal to each other. And so with the sun being all about the self and the ego, you know, the proud lion who is the king, then, you know, we can't have a whole load of chiefs and no Indians, essentially. That's the message of the sun in Aquarius. It's kind of like, well, yeah, we're all special, thank you very much, kind of thing. So the sun struggles a little bit there. And of course, certainly here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's midwinter. This is the fixed sign of Aquarius, is the midpoint of this season, each season having 3 months. It's the exact midpoint of winter. And so, you know, the sun's strength is diminished. It's cold. It's really cold. It's been very cold the last few days. So these are all kind of like significators, essentially, of the power that the sun has at this time, and therefore the power that I as an individual and my sense of self, my sense of ego, therefore has. But also the sun acts as this spotlight, as does the moon. They act as a spotlight, and they're saying, this is the area of your chart that needs some attention. This is where all the focus is right now. So wherever Aquarius is in your chart, that's where, you know, your attention is being drawn. Those areas of life in the house that Aquarius occupies. And that's the kind of thing I'll be going into in my Zoom session coming up on the 5th. So we've got the sun at 5 degrees of Aquarius. Sun basically came together with Saturn yesterday, Sunday. And this is quite a, well, over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, it's quite a tough feeling, essentially. It can be, because the sun just wants happiness and joy. It wants to shine. It wants to be recognized. It wants to be important, and it needs an audience, essentially. Well, it's not getting that in Aquarius anyway. But then coming up with Saturn is quite a humbling kind of energy. Saturn can be a bit of a dampener. So if you went through those kinds of feelings of being a bit low in terms of your self-esteem, or in terms of just where you can have an impact in life, you know, then that's the reason why. But one of the really important messages around when the Sun and Saturn meet up is time. Um, Saturn in mythology is represented by Kronos, the Lord of Time. And Saturn does things slowly. Saturn speaks of maturity and doing things for the longer term benefits. So it's essentially, it's kind of strengthening our resolve that even though things are really challenging right now and so chaotic and up in the air, you know, there will come a time when we get to shine once more. And what Saturn's saying is, you know, regroup and kind of focus more on your determination, essentially, to, even though it might seem like really far off, you're going to be so, so pleased that you did the work. And when we get to that part of the future, that you knuckled down and said, okay, I've got a responsibility here. That's what Saturn's all about. I have a responsibility for the part that I play in the collective, and just really getting to grips with what that might be, and feeling a sense of importance for that, essentially. It also speaks with time and the moon in Cancer as well, talking about our history, our ancestral path. And, you know, Saturn and the Sun does bring to mind the idea that at some point our life force, as it currently is, will end. It will come to an end. You know, Saturn, the Reaper, will come and we will essentially be in detriment. We won't be able to shine our light on this earthly plane anymore in this particular incarnation. And that makes us think, well, what am I leaving behind? What's my legacy? What legacy do I leave behind? How have I shone my light? And what is the lasting, enduring impression that that's going to make on the collective at that time? So, you know, what will the collective be able to harvest, you know, when the Reaper comes along and cuts down my life, which is inevitable, you know, it's going to happen to us all. And I don't honestly believe it's anything to fear in any way, shape or form. I think it's something to have a healthy respect for. And I think that's the way to look at Saturn, not being this dark, shadowy, fearful thing, but it's just a case of, it's just a practical reality that we need to have some respect for. So every time we consider that, then we must think, well, okay, there is going to be an end point to me at some point. And yeah, what are the memories? What is the footprint that I leave behind? What's the impression that I've made on people? I think that's an important thing to consider at this time. So yeah, reaffirming our integrity as well, Saturn. How, you know, do I respect myself? Do I act in a way that that requires respect from other people? You know, this also talks to boundaries as well. Am I presenting my relationship to self in a way that encourages other people to respect me? Because that's a very healthy thing. Self-respect, reaffirming our integrity and reminding us of the mark we make in our life. So we also have this applying square from the Sun now to Uranus, as Saturn applies in square to Uranus as well. That's going to come 3 times this year, first time in February. But right now it's going to be the Sun. So this is saying, you know, how do I move forward? What's the progress that I'm going to make, and how do I get involved in the changes that really do need to happen right now as a species? We can't go back to normal. You know, that's gone. Like, there is no normal anymore. We're in this time of everything being shaken up and disturbed, so that hopefully when the pieces fall back into place after they've been up in the air for a little while, so that they can fall back into a place that's better. Yeah, there's no suffering for no reason. This is forcing us to say, to take responsibility essentially for the fact that things have not been working for a little while, and we've been brushing it under the carpet, and now we really have to get down and do the work and say, yeah, we do need to make some progress now. around our resources, around our connection to nature. And so how do I play my part in that with the Sun square to Uranus? That also facilitates some personal breakthroughs as well, in understanding the self, in understanding the need to shine, the need to have some recognition, the need to bring joy and creativity to other people, and just understanding ourselves and our place in the collective. We can have some real breakthroughs there. Uranus loves those kind of very sudden lightning bolt moments of, oh, makes sense now. And that's really personalized with the square to the Sun. That's going to be perfecting right alongside the Neptune square to the nodes, also perfecting. So lots of squares, and what squares do is they say, you know, take action, make something happen. You know, it's going to just provoke us a little bit. It's going to irritate us a little bit just to get us to do something. All right, so it's a stimulating energy is the square. So this Neptune square the nodes is something I've been talking about for a little while. It's been really building in the background of society, and I'm sure I've talked enough about that already for you to know. But yeah, this is all perfecting in the background, and is another powerful factor of this week. So you know, that's going to complete on Tuesday. So as we move into Tuesday the 26th of January 2021, we've got the moon in her home sign of Cancer. And early in the morning on Tuesday, she's therefore going to create a sextile aspect over to Uranus. So this is really encouraging those breakthroughs that we would like to happen. But they're going to be informed by the intuitive process, by listening to our feelings, by listening to, you know, that voice inside, that knowingness inside that keeps us kind of in alignment with our values, because Taurus is the home of Venus. It's the home of our self-esteem, our self-values, the things that we think are, you know, are worthy of our efforts in time in the world. How we work and what are the things that we buy, and our relationship to money and to food and to nature. So, you know, we should get some really important intuitive moments. And I would suggest, with the moon being so strongly placed at this time, trust your intuition on Tuesday. Yeah, let your feelings be your guide, essentially. As the square then perfects between the Uranus and Sun and Neptune and the nodes. And then overnight, moving further into Tuesday, she continues the journey through water sign Cancer. And that means as she progresses, she will then create a trine aspect up to Neptune in Pisces. So again, keying us into this whole vibration of the Neptune squaring the nodes. This is where we're really coming to grips with chaos, essentially, where nothing feels solid, nothing feels clear, everything's very confusing. We can't make any plans. There's just nothing to cling to. We're all kind of set adrift at the moment, and little things are popping up out of the water here and there and saying, well, maybe you could attach onto me, or maybe you could attach onto me. But we're not really quite sure. With hard aspects to Neptune, we're not really sure whether those are things that you want to grab onto or not. You know, that could just be a shark's fin, you know, and that might look really appealing if you've been treading water for 3 days out there in the Pacific Ocean. Oh, great, something solid. But, you know, it's attached to a shark. So what can I say? Deception can be rife with these square aspects to Neptune, as can be the, you know, illusions, delusions, where we're deluding ourselves, or where there's been some falsification, intentional or otherwise, at play, which I imagine through the process of time, we're going to be able to recognize more and more as we move out of this. But this really speaks to that choice point that I mentioned at the beginning in my introduction. You know, the choice point of our place in the collective. Neptune and Pisces also speak to the collective as well, but more the collective sort of subconscious, the bits that we don't see, but that ultimate kind of divinity that pulls all of humanity together, that fundamentally we are all a miracle. Like, even though there's so many of us, and we have a culture that values things more if they're rare, you know, if something doesn't happen very often, we think it's that more special. Because if something is prolific, then we can take it for granted. We don't need to respect it, because, you know, there's another one that will take its place just as easily. You know, there's not much hard work in finding a replacement. And unfortunately, I feel like we've got to that place in humanity. There's so many of us that we don't value individual life with anything like the level of respect and admiration and awe, frankly, for the miracle, the sanctity of the, you know, that source element that is within all of us, whomever we are. So the moon will really speak powerfully to this. And I think that's going to be a beautiful time. So that's going to be happening overnight Tuesday, and then as we move into Wednesday morning. So I'll just clear some of these off then as we talk about Wednesday. So with Wednesday then, the moon is moving sort of deeper through Cancer. And this means that she's going to move into opposition with our planets up there in Capricorn. Okay, in sort of the last decan, the third decan of Cancer, so the last 10 degrees, so from 19 to 29 degrees of Cancer. So if you've got any planets between those degrees of either Cancer, Libra, Aries, or Capricorn, you're going to be feeling this energy the most. So, and this is going to be a sort of late afternoon on Wednesday, so we'll feel the pull into it as we go throughout Wednesday. And this is going to be bringing our attention to two things. Firstly, the applying conjunction that's taking place between Venus and Pluto. So Venus, being the faster moving personal planet, is kind of zooming through Capricorn now, and she's pulling closer and closer and closer to Pluto. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008 and has got a couple of years left there. And Pluto is all about death and rebirth, you know, what needs to break down, break apart here, and how do we put it back together? And Venus is saying, what is our values? Okay, what are the bits about our current structure that we value, that we want to continue going forwards? And what are the things that really aren't in alignment with, you know, what we feel in our heart, that we really need to say goodbye to now. And so with Venus pulling into this, we're going to see more of her influence. And I suspect what we'll see is potentially some news around equality, particularly with regards to women, Venus representing the feminine, women's equality, you know, just greater access to position, status, reputation, recognition for women. That's going to be an increasing issue as Venus meets with Pluto. And then also the connection to the financial markets and, you know, money, because that's also what Venus rules. So I'll be interested to see, you know, where we've got Taurus rules the financial markets, and Taurus is ruled by Venus. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, with the squares going on to Uranus, bringing instability into the financial markets and into the resources and supply chains. You know, if this is going to bring something up to the surface that relates to that. On a more individual level, you know, Moon in opposition to Pluto is essentially, and especially when the moon's in Cancer, is really going to speak to a very intense desire and feeling nature. So we can expect an increase in passions and in intense feelings around this day and the sort of day either side. Moon really ruling our emotions, ruling how we feel inside, and also the way that we kind of intuitively react to life or to circumstances that show up. You know, that programming that just kind of jumps in, the knee-jerk reactions essentially, that jumps in without us really engaging our brain first. So there might be a bit of that going on in quite a powerful way. So this is certainly a time where we might feel like our emotions are getting the best of us. So just bear that in mind. And I'm not saying ignore your emotions, quite the opposite. Just be aware of how powerfully and how strongly you really do feel about something. Because we do tend to suppress things. We do tend to push things under the carpet, play things down for the sake of appearances, which is a Venus thing. And it's these moments where the moon pushes that up to the surface and says, no, hang on, especially alongside Pluto, no, hang on, this actually is deeply important to you. This is a powerful part of who you are. So it needs airing, essentially. It needs to come into the light of day. So what we could find then is intense feelings, a desire to connect, a very powerful desire to connect with, usually more on a one-to-one basis. And that's usually something that we experience around a full moon anyway. And certainly people who are born around the full moon tend to be really good at dealing on a one-to-one basis with other people. But yeah, this could be like a magnetic draw to a certain person, or to finding someone, or to having, you know, a deep, intense, powerful connection, relationship with someone. We can really feel the need for that. So it's bringing, it's putting the spotlight on this. Now, this Venus-Pluto conjunction is actually super, super important. This is going to be happening a little bit later in the week. But what's going to happen is Venus will move out of Capricorn, she'll move into Aquarius. And then as the year goes on, she's going to move through every single sign. And she's going to come all the way back around to Capricorn by December of this year. And a bit of the way into December, and then into the following calendar year, she's going to be going retrograde. And this will be a time where we kind of re-establish and have a rethink about our values and what we love and care for, what's important to us from a heart space. And that, again, is going to be happening alongside Pluto at this very same part of the chart in Capricorn. And I think that's going to be extremely important for us all going forward. So this is almost like just saying, this thing here, we're going to come back to this and we're really, really going to go over it. Like, this is just like a taster, essentially, that's happening this week. But, you know, if you journal, if you keep a diary, a moon diary or anything like that, take a note of what comes up on this opposition, because it's likely that they're the things that you're then going to revisit when we go through the Venus retrograde at the end of this year and into the next. So just a preview, essentially, of what's going to be showing up there. So then in our personal lives, it's a similar kind of story. You know, where do we keep the peace for the sake of appearances? Where do we push down, you know, our most powerful needs and desires and passions, where do we kind of bite our tongue or pretend that things, we put a veneer on things, don't we? And I'm specifically talking here to our relationships, our love relationships, our romantic relationships. You know, where do we put like this veneer that everything's okay? You know, if the pictures I put on social media make me look happy, then I'm happy, kind of thing. And the truth underneath that, the Pluto, is all the yuck, you know, all the stuff that isn't presentable, that happens behind closed doors in every sense. You know, the real raw, ugly truth of what we kind of, the cracks we paper over. All right. And what this can do with the moon here in opposition is it can really purge that stuff up to the surface and say, oh, do you know what? We can't pretend about this stuff anymore. We can't bullshit, essentially. The bullshit just won't wash at this particular time. It really is about the truth and about getting real about things and just being able to look at the ugly, rotting, horrible bits that we'd rather not, you know, the shadows, essentially. So, you know, if you've been pushing something down, if you've been suppressing something in your relationship, you may find now that it's intolerable, really, to hold that in and to not give that its space, you know, its validity. It's kind of about giving our heart and our feelings validity within the relationship. So pretty powerful stuff, and a revelation, quite an intense revelation, that might even take us by surprise ourselves. Like, I didn't realize I felt so strongly about that as I do, but clearly I do. And again, this is part of informing us about ourselves and what we're all about and how we're going forwards. Okay, so then moving into Thursday the 28th. Things liven up a bit more. Now we have the moon in fire sign Leo. This is kind of overnight. So the moon moving into Leo, so the moon is now in the sun's sign, all right? Sun rules Leo. And, you know, Leo likes to be recognized. Leo likes to feel seen. It wants an audience, you know, and it will twist itself into many different shapes and put on many different creative performances and expressions of itself to capture people's attention. It's synonymous with fame, you know, famous people. The sun and Leo is all about fame, because it's, you know, it's that sunshine that pulls people. You know, people gravitate towards the sun. You just have to live in England on the first sunny day of the summer and like everyone just flocks outside. You know, it's that kind of pull that the sun and Leos have on us. So our emotions therefore take on this this veneer as well of, I need to be seen, I need to be important, I need to be able to give my light to the world and have that bring some happiness and some joy and some fun and all of those things. I need to be seen, I need to be acknowledged for what I contribute, essentially. So there can be quite a dramatic effect when we have the moon in Leo, especially this big. Because, yeah, the more drama, the more attention. So I think drama is more these days used as a pejorative term, but I mean it in all of the senses. So drama in terms of playing the part, essentially. We're all playing different roles in our life. As we perform to all the different audiences. I perform to my family, my children, my clients, my colleagues, my friends, you know, we're all kind of showing up in a different, slightly different persona. You know, and that is a sense of drama, of acting, really, of playing a part. And so there is a dramatic essence to the moon, to our feelings, to our emotional reactions and responses, because it's the exuberance and I need attention and, you know, all of that kind of thing. I feel the need to be complimented and recognized, and I want people to look at me and all of that good stuff. So around about 4 a.m, the moon moves into Leo. So as we wake up on Thursday morning, that's going to be kind of the vibe that we're in. So Leo's ruler, the sun, is in detriment over there in Aquarius, as we've talked about. But there's a bonus to the fact that Jupiter is also over there in Aquarius at the moment. And what we've got here then is we've got the sun is applying into a conjunction with Jupiter. So fresh off the back of that conjunction with Saturn, as we moved into this week, which was Saturn has more of a restrictive quality to it, a more, you know, humbling. Jupiter's the opposite. Jupiter's like expansive and buoyant and uplifting and optimistic energy. So as the sun, even though the sun doesn't really do its best for the self in the sign of Aquarius, applying to Jupiter is really going to give it, you know, a healthy dose of lift of, you know, Jupiter rules Sag, which is another fire sign. So it's a little bit more heat, a little bit more warmth. We could all do with some warmth right now. I'm saying that as literally the drills that you hear in the background are fixing my heating, hopefully. So the sun then is applying to this conjunction with Jupiter. That's going to perfect overnight. And that's going to bring, it's often referred to as the luckiest day of the year. When Jupiter and the sun come together, you may find that opportunities open up in this area of your life, wherever Aquarius is in your chart, and whatever planets you have within that sign. This is where there's going to be greater luck, a reversal of fortunes, opportunities may present themselves to you, legal situations may turn out to be better, all sorts of like really great optimistic things, and we get a confidence boost as well. So what's happening then as the moon continues into her journey through Leo? What have we got? Okay, so we're building into essentially a T-square, very, very provocative and powerful energy. Hang on, let me get my head around this because I've got so many notes. So Mars, yeah, fiery, fiery Mars. So lots and lots of fire energy here. We've got the fire energy of Sun and Jupiter, the fire energy of Mars, and then we've got the fire energy of the moon in Leo as well. So a very fiery, but fixed. These are fixed signs. So a fiery fixed T-square is what we're moving into. And that basically sets the scene for the full moon, which is happening in Leo at this time. So when the moon gets the exact opposition to the sun, that's our full moon. Okay, so that's going to be at 9 degrees of Leo on the 28th is the full moon. So whatever you've got in your chart at any of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, around 9 degrees, that's really going to be powerfully kind of stimulated. You know, the fire's really going to be stoked in that area of life. And essentially, again, this is just, you know, it's this contrast of me and my importance, you know, as the king, as the center of the solar system, the sun that expects all the planets to move around it in adoration of its life-giving force, and then the kind of humbling fact that, yeah, well, you're just one of 8 billion people kind of thing. You are part of the collective. It's that balance there. And then the square to Aquarius's ruler, Uranus, and Mars, which is very much about the self, you know, me and what I want. But this really speaks to what action are we going to take? You know, what can we do? How do we move forward? You know, Mars is all about that. It wants to do something, and this aspect wants for you to do something. So listen, essentially, is what we do, particularly with regards to interactions that we have with other people on the full moon. Usually it's things that get mirrored back to us through those interactions, where we identify something within ourselves or within our own world or within our own part in the world. So really pay attention to what's showing up on that day, and see if that can give you an important piece of the picture in terms of where you are on your journey of being relevant, and of feeling that you matter in the world, and how you can matter in the world more if that's what you need, or where you matter in the world being more in alignment with what you really truly care about and what you want to see in the future as we all move forward. It's really going to be shining quite a powerful, stimulating light on that area of chart. And this is the fruition point of a new moon that happened back in August, around about mid-August. So think back to what was showing up in your life around about the new moon in August. And that will be where you planted the seeds, either knowingly or not. We plant seeds at the new moon of intention. And then when we come to the full moon point, that's when those things come to fruition. And the universe says, okay, this is how far you've come on that journey, for good or for bad, or a mixture of it. You will just get, this is where we see the product that we have been working towards, consciously, subconsciously, and a mixture of the two. So have a think back to August, see what was happening. So yeah, a little bit more drama with all this feisty, fiery energy, and a full moon in Leo, and this real need to be relevant, and to feel acknowledged in some way, and how also that we go about making other people feel relevant. Do we acknowledge the part that other people play in our life, the important people in our tribe? Do we let them know, they're important to us? Do we just take that for granted that they know that? Are we uncomfortable about expressing those kinds of feelings? Because Aquarius energy is quite emotionally detached. It doesn't like to get too mushy and gooey about things. But I think it's really, really important that we understand, and make greater space for, our love and emotional and feeling worlds, within our interactions and connections with other people going forward. So, when was the last time that you said to someone, I really value your presence in my life, or I love the way that you do this, or, this feels really important to me. So try and, if you can, see ways where, if you don't feel relevant, if you don't feel important, if you don't feel witnessed and seen, or that you matter, or any of these things, or if you've noticed some of those feelings creeping up lately, then give what you'd like to receive. All right, pay it forward. Let other people know, I really care about you for this, or I love it when you do that. All of these kinds of things. Just give people a bit of a compliment, not for the sake of it, don't blow smoke up their bums, but, let's just recognize the sunshine that other people bring into our lives. And yeah, hopefully that will spread and encourage, which very much is a Jupiter Sun thing, will encourage more of that to happen as we move forward. Okay. Friday the 29th then. So on Friday the 29th, that Sun-Jupiter conjunction is very much still in play. So this essentially will be what we would consider the luckiest day of the year. It's nice that it's falling on a Friday, because Friday is all about Venus, and how we connect and having pleasure, and of women, women become that bit more important and valued on Venus's day, on a Friday, as does creativity, as does all of the things that women represent: caring, nurturing, nursing. I mean, just look at nurses. They're just quietly, heroically working so insanely hard. Does our structure right now, Capricorn, as I was saying, as Venus meets Pluto, do we value our carers? Do we value our nursing staff? Do we value our retail workers? They're the people literally holding everything together right now. And they're some of the lowest people and undervalued people within our society. This is something that really has to change, in my personal humble opinion. But you will come to your own conclusions about that. But yeah, Friday's Venus Day. Sun-Jupiter conjunction, very, very present, opening up opportunities, making us feel a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more optimistic, and a little bit more like we are gold, we have something to offer. Sorry, I just, I got an alarm going off on my phone. So then, as we move into the evening then, we've got the moon now in Virgo, all right, after going through the full moon. The Friday evening, the moon moves into Virgo. Virgo, of course, being ruled by Mercury. And so we start now coming into a process of analysis, all right? Both in the shorter term and, as I was kind of hinting to in my introduction, a bigger process as well. So when we've just passed a full moon and the moon starts to wane again, a lot of people, in my opinion, wrongly assume that we immediately start to let things go at the full moon. Like they've reached their peak and it's all about letting go right now. But it's really not the way I see it. The first 7 days after the full moon is actually a time to pick apart what came up, what was presented to us, to make sense of it all, to analyze it and be with it and understand it. We've got like 7 days between the full moon and the quarter square moon to really get our heads around things, and to work it through, and just kind of intentionally think about it, but also, talk about it with friends or read something about it or whatever. We've got like this big chunk of time where we really shouldn't be letting anything go yet, because we haven't really explored it fully enough. So when the moon's in Virgo, that's really, really helpful in that process, because it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is all about purity. So Mercury rules 2 signs, Gemini, and in Gemini it's really good about the mental processes of understanding things, of the logical process of how things work. So, okay, how does that work? Full moon's shown me I need to do something in this area of my life. Okay, how's that going to work? What do I need to do? What's the process I need to go through in order to make that happen? And then Mercury rules Virgo, which is all about where something needs cleaning up, essentially, or healing, all right, or distilling. We're distilling our understanding of what's gone on. We're refining things, we're polishing things. It loves to clean things. It loves to make things improved in some way. So this couple of days that we'll have with the moon going through Virgo is really helping us to clarify and clean and purify and refine what we're going to do as we move forward. Off the back of that kind of square aspect that we've had with Neptune in square to the South Node in a Mercury ruled sign, there's been a lot of, let's say, fake news. Neptune, Gemini, fake news, like false information, untruths, distortions of things being corrupted and polluted and poisoned, information, data being poisoned, all of these things. And we're starting to now move into this time where we can see where that's happened and where we've got caught up in it, perhaps ourselves, in terms of our beliefs, Sagittarius, okay? South node up there in Sag, North node in Gemini. So this is going to, essentially what's going to be happening is, let me see, she's going to oppose Mercury, sorry, just before she finishes in Leo, she's going to oppose Mercury, ready to move into Virgo. And so this is where we get that where we're merging between the drama and the passion of our feeling nature, everything that's come up with, oh, well, hang on, we're moving into Mercury territory there, and then we're moving into Mercury territory when the moon moves through into Virgo. And this is going to be saying, right, that's all about how I feel. This is how about I think. And kind of trying to find the balance between what's going on in my head, what makes sense, what's logical, what's rational, and what's actually in my heart and what I feel. And when we have this opposition from the moon to Mercury, it can make that feel like a really difficult but unavoidable battle. So what I'm saying is that following on from the full moon in the days after that point is that we could find there sort of an internal dilemma of, I really strongly feel this way, but my head's saying, actually, we should do this instead. How do I find some kind of middle ground? You know, the opposition is always trying to make us find the middle ground. How do I get a balance, a healthy balance when the moon's in Virgo? It's all about health. How do I get a healthy, practical balance between head and heart? And that's really interesting because on Saturday, then, let me just take these off. So on Saturday, as we have the moon in Virgo, ruled by Mercury, we have Mercury turning retrograde. The first Mercury retrograde of 2021 begins. And the first planet, as we can see, now going back into retrograde, everything else has been direct. So the Mercury retrograde, let's take a moment just to look at this specifically. Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. This is, like all Mercury retrogrades, this is saying, you know, hang on a second, something doesn't stack up. Like we just went through something and something really wasn't right. Okay, so we've got to go back over it. We've forgotten something, we've missed something, something wasn't clear, something wasn't properly done. So we've got to, Mercury turns retrograde and we've got to reconsider. We've got to have a review of things that have happened. So this goes right back to January the 14th. So on January the 14th of this year, at 11 degrees of Aquarius, so around about the part of the chart where the full moon in Leo is happening as well, Mercury went into what we call pre-retrograde shadow. So that's essentially when this whole process started. So find 11 degrees of Aquarius in your chart, and on anything that's happened between January the 14th and January the 30th, where Mercury has been moving through, we now get to go back over. So that's both in your individual world and the world at large. So don't forget, this is everything that's happening around the use of information about speech. I know that's been a massive topic. I'm not going to brush that one under the carpet. No way. Freedom of speech has been a massive topic. You know, social media platforms, censorship, any kind of use of information, but particularly, you know, with Aquarius, this really is about connections. It really is about networks. Social networking is going to be a big one, and how we connect with other people around the globe. Where that does us some good, where it doesn't do us good, you know, we're going to be unpicking all that kind of thing. It's going to rule news. It's going to rule anything new or innovative that came up during that time, particularly with regards, it's Mercury, and we've got the moon in Virgo, particularly around healing. So there may be some issues that come up with regards to, for example, the vaccines that have been put out there for COVID, or treatments for COVID, or any other illness for that matter. Those kinds of things are areas, certainly the elections that we have taken place, because Jupiter's very much involved in the Mercury retrograde, and Jupiter's politics, Jupiter's beliefs, Jupiter's the law, so legal action, that kind of thing. All of these things that have been happening since the 14th of January, Mercury's like, hang on, something doesn't stack up there. Come on, let's go back over all of that stuff and we'll pick it all apart and we'll try and find where something needs to be put right. So that's going to continue on, that retrograde. So from 26 degrees of Aquarius is where the retrograde starts. Mercury will then move all the way back to 11 degrees Aquarius, and will then station direct on February the 20th. So we'll be in retrograde for around about 3 weeks. So not a good time to sign a contract if you can avoid it, or make an enduring agreement of some kind. And definitely not a good time to buy, really not a good time to buy a new piece of digital equipment, especially with this being Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. Get anything done like now. Really not a great year it's never a great year to leave your tax return till the last minute, but I would say get that done earlier in the week. Don't leave it till the last minute. Don't buy any new telephones, computers, all of that kind of thing. Just wait till Mercury's at least out of retrograde on the 20th of February. And then as of the 20th of February, when Mercury's gone all the way back to the earlier part of Aquarius, then we enter the post-retrograde shadow. And that takes us through until March the 13th. And that's where things start to then fall back into place. Okay, so it's like Mercury opens things up, brings things up in the pre-shadow, then it goes back over them all during the retrograde and says, oh, hang on a second, something's not right, we've got to find it. And then as it moves forward in the post-retrograde shadow, it's saying, okay, this is how we straighten things out, this is how things can be clarified and distilled and purified and healed and improved, so that we can move forward. So a really, really, really powerful time for you to bring any kind of clarity to that area of your life by just being pulled back into it. And if we ignore the call to be pulled back into that area of our life, that's when things show up going untoward in the outer world. All right. So typically with Mercury retrograde, we have terrible communication issues and breakdowns with telecoms and communication devices, and we can get lost. Things go missing, our words get misinterpreted. This is where he's really a trickster. This is where he gets his badge of being the trickster from. Nothing seems to go according to plan. So to minimize those sorts of events showing up, try and channel the influence of Mercury retrograde into an area of your life that just needs a little bit more. Do you know what? I started something and I didn't quite finish it. So let's go back to something. Let's revisit something. Or I did something, but I wasn't quite happy with it. So, I'm going to see if I can refine it and improve it in some way. Those kinds of things. There's a multiple possibilities there, and that's going to be relevant to where it is in your chart. But yeah, just going back over things and refining and reviewing things is a big deal. So that's the main news for Saturday the 30th then. Moving into Sunday the 31st then, let's just take that arrow away. The moon in Virgo will now move into oppose Neptune over there in Pisces. So once again, this is drawing our attention to the clash of chaos and control. Order, understanding, refinement, purity, and just swimming, lost, floating around on, a strange sea. This is really, the moon here is still very powerful. She's still quite big at this point in time. So what she's going to be doing then as she moves into oppose Neptune, of course, is that's once more going to highlight the squares down to the nodes. So we're going to, here we go. Have I got any more squares? I've got, okay, we just have to imagine. I don't have enough squares, it would seem. No, not quite enough squares. Just imagine there's another one there as well. So we have essentially a grand mutable square. These are the mutable signs: Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Gemini, and they're all about change. Okay, so this is the time when that choice point of who we are and how we're showing up in the collective, this is where, again, we have this another dose of, how do I bring about the change? How do I be the change? What change do I need to be? And what power do I have in that situation? As an individual, being just this tiny drop in the ocean, essentially, that we can feel like we are. Where do I have any sort of sense of control and direction and clarity? And where do I just have to trust and put my faith in, the divine order that I'm not party to, essentially? I just have to accept that I can't see all the steps ahead of me on the path. I just have to be prepared to want to take the first step and have the courage to take the first step, even if that is into the unknown. But that unknown is, all about change and where we need to be moving. So this really speaks to, as we activate this nodal square and with the grand mutable square of change, this really, really reminds me of the serenity prayer. I think that's a really important piece of literature just to remind ourselves of. If you've heard it before and you're really familiar with it, it's a good reminder. And if you haven't, then welcome to the serenity prayer. And it goes, God, grant me this serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that really, really is, this couldn't be a more perfect time to have that kind of mantra, as we have, understanding the difference between where I don't have any control over anything and where I do, and being able to understand Mercury and have the wisdom, Sagittarius, Jupiter, to know the difference between the two. So, that really is quite powerful. Remind yourself of that on Sunday. Write it down even. The process of writing the words out can really engage you in the energy that the words convey, as does speaking them. The spoken word has so much power than what we think. The words that we hear in our own inner dialogue. This is why mirroring interactions with other people are so powerful. That the inner voice, we don't give it that much credit. It's not until we hear things come out of our mouths or get written onto a page that they take on that little bit more validity, essentially, and capture our attention that bit more. So perhaps just write that down on Sunday. Just find yourself, just write that down, almost as like as a call to God, to connect to source. This is what I'd really like at this crazy point in my life and in the life of everyone on this planet. Okay, so where are we going? Sunday, Moon in Virgo, opposite Neptune in the nodes. So some other questions essentially that we're going to ask ourselves as we pull this week to a close. How valid am I? You know, the stuff that's showing up in our relationships with that Pluto-Venus conjunction up there, that's really going to be saying, you know, how important are my needs? How valid am I in this relationship? And what I want to have from this relationship, what I contribute to it, what I take from it, how valid am I in the relationship? And also then in the outer world, how valid do I feel out there in the midst of all these billions of people around the world, particularly in this situation where all those avenues for me to have some kind of influence, to have an impact, to make a difference, may all be so minimized and restricted in the short term. So how valid am I, and how valid do I feel? That's the thing with the opposition between Mercury and Neptune that we've got going on in different ways. That conversation between head and heart, you know, how valid do I feel, and is that true? You know, is that how things really are? And if not, then why do I feel that I'm not valid? And just explore that a little bit. You'll get a huge amount out of it if you do. What impact do I make, and what happens now going forward? You know, do I want to be someone who makes an impact? Do I want to leave an impression on the world when I leave it? Or am I happy just to be quiet and to just quietly carry out my life and to, you know, move on to wherever I go peacefully? To some degree or not, we will all leave an impression of some kind, though. So, you know, it does bear sort of thinking about being conscious of that as we move through life. Can only benefit everyone in the world, as far as I can see it. What makes me feel proud of myself? Leo, the lion, pride. This is a thing, and with the sun in detriment right now, that over there in Aquarius, you know, it's really about giving yourself some recognition. You're probably not going to get it from the tribe right now. So it's about saying, okay, what are the things that I do that make me feel proud and give me a sense of respect and importance for myself? What do I love about myself? What are the things that I feel that I do that add to humanity? And really give some focus to those things. And then as we move ahead and move into this energy of having a direction forwards, then we can say, yeah, that's what I want to be all about. And then the detail of how that happens, that's what's out of our control right now. All right, you know, with this, all this Neptune energy around, so much is uncertain, so we can't like know the exact plan, but what we can do is get clear about who we are, what we're here to do, and just have that as the ultimate goal, and worry about, let go, surrender to God, to Neptune, surrender the process of how that happens. Just trust that it will happen if you care enough from heart, and if you can get that inner process of heart and mind working together in a team to move you forwards in a way that's just going to facilitate you being more and more proud of yourself and really shining your light into the world. So that's what I have for you this week. I love this week. I think it's going to be really great for all of us in lots of ways. So I hope that was helpful for you. As always, if it was, please give me a like or a share. Do drop me a comment. Let me know how you get on as you move through the week, and get in touch if you're not on Facebook or Instagram and you want to take part in my Zoom session, applying the Astrology Forecast to your life. And until next Monday, have a really beautiful week. Enjoy. Bye.